Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the paddock. Today, we are discussing all of the lovely liveries for this season and a few of our favorite helmet designs. On the episode today, we have myself, Rachel, Edo, and Amy. And it only feels right to start off with the current top team on the grid, Red Bull.
Now, obviously, we're covering liveries in the middle of the season, so everybody has already seen all of these cars on track, but I feel like Red Bull has really found what they like for their livery, and they are just sticking to it. Obviously, the design of the car itself is different from last year, but I feel like they've found their brand, and damn it, they are really sticking to those brand guidelines. As a girl who works in marketing, I have to say I really love their commitment to their brand. I don't know if everybody watched their actual livery launch, but for me, I have to say I really loved their launch because they leaned into this Forever Rebel theme that was very kind of graffiti art vibe, just really edgy and fun. And I kind of wish that showed more in the car itself, because it does seem that Forever Rebel mantra is important to Red Bull. So part of me is like, I wish I saw that more in the car. But if I'm going to give it like an out of 10 rating, for me, it's an 8.8 out of 10. I love their consistency. Like, I can just always count on Red Bull to deliver something aesthetic, at least.
Yeah, I think my favorite part is just how before the livery launch, Max told everyone on a Team Redline stream that the livery is exactly the same. Those were his words. It's exactly the same. And everyone's like, oh yeah, no, it is. I don't think they never really add sponsors, and they don't usually like have any that drop out. So they don't really have to make any changes. They can stick to exactly the same thing every year. And they do. They think it's iconic. They're like, we're sticking to it. And the only thing for this year, I will say, to me, the navy looks slightly deeper than in the past, but that could just be me. But I mean, it's very much, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. 8.7 out of 10 for the commitment. And as my sister used to say, hashtag always on brand.
I mean, honestly, my first thought when I saw the pictures was at least they added yellow. Then again, Red Bull is Red Bull, and honestly, in this day and age, I feel like any car that has paint on it still, that's not all carbon fiber, gets a thumbs up from me. That's why 7 out of 10.
Now, Ito is right. We love when we have teams that give us paint on the cars instead of just exposed carbon fiber. If you've seen the George Russell, I think it's TikTok or a Instagram reel of him just tapping around things in the Mercedes garage and just saying carbon fiber. I mean, yes, please give me paint, not carbon fiber. That's kind of the fun of this. But if we're going to stick in the Red Bull family, we obviously have to go to Visa, Cash App, RB, whatever their full name is, V-Carb for short, which no, abso-freaking-lutely not. RB is decent, but they're Toro Rosso. I'm sorry, so sue me. They're Toro Rosso. That is what they will forever and always be. And their livery, for me at least, is really giving Toro Rosso energy. It's got the fun, punchy colors, that nice, really bright blue that just stands out. It's not a navy, it's not a light blue. It's just, it stands out in the crowd, and I really like it. I will just never be on board with that team name, but I have to give them credit. They gave us white racing suits, which they're not the only team on the grid that gave us white racing suits, but I just like a white racing suit for some reason. It fits the whole vibe for me, at least. I'll give it like a 7 out of 10. The 7's really just because the name kills it for me. I love the livery, but the name just does not work for me, at least.
I agree. I'm living for the Toro Rosso vibes. The only thing that kind of kills it, other than the name, is the Cash App logo, which, like, yes, they're the sponsor, but it's that bright green, and it stands out so glaringly against the blue and the white and the red. It just doesn't fit. But the closest thing I will call them to, like, other than Toro Rosso, to their, like, actual name is RB. I will not call it the whole acronym. It's too much. I think that's the only thing they really could have done better with the name, and then maybe incorporating the Cash App logo a little bit better, in my opinion. 6.8 out of 10. I hate the name, but I love the vibes. The vibes are there.
I mean, honestly, I feel like this team, because I'm not going to say any name because I'm going to say it wrong. I'm going to piss people off. I'm not even going to go there. But this team is definitely, and this livery is definitely giving Seb era. It's giving Seb. And honestly, while they haven't done too well in the past two races, I do hope they can channel that energy a bit more come Australia this week. Because Seb, after all, was the first winner of theirs. And also, might I add, the first winner out of the two Red Bull teams. Toro Rosso, back in the day, scored the first win, not Red Bull. So please bring that energy because the livery is on fire, and that's why I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Now, I feel like if we're going to talk about a team that has had a name change, we have to talk about Stake F1 team. Stake Kicksauber F1 team. What is your full name? Please make it easier on us, people. I'm going to call you Sauber. I'm sorry. If the shoe fits, wear it. But honestly, when I first saw this livery, I really couldn't decide if I loved it or if I hated it. Now, it looks really cool on track, and you can be really sure that you will never lose this car on track if you're watching it on TV, if you are at the race in person. There's just no way in God's green earth that you are losing this car on track. It's so bright. But I also kind of can't tell if I need sunglasses to look at this thing or if I'm just insane, because it's giving green highlighter in the very best way. And the fact that they're even leaning into the green highlighter on their social media is just even better. For me, it's a 9 out of 10 because it's just so different from all of the other cars that we have on the grid this season.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be mad about it, but honestly, it's a sleigh. Like, it works. And per usual, our fashion prince of the paddock, Joe, is absolutely killing it in the team kit. I mean, I don't think there's a single thing on this earth that man can't pull off, similar to Sir Lewis Hamilton. But, and like you said, Amy, it is so easy to spot at the back of the grid. I'm sorry, boys, but it's true. 9.6 out of 10 because I'm not the biggest fan of neon, especially neon green, but it works.
So, I'm not going to lie. First reaction, I was like, someone forgot to wipe off the flow viz. Second thought was, though, finally some color. Because again, not a fan of the carbon fiber, even if it makes the cars go faster, potentially. And honestly, it's probably going to remain one of the few teams that will have color when I first saw it, because as you guys might remember, Sauber was one of the first teams to launch their car. And honestly, the more I look at it, the more it grows on me. Does it give Stabilo highlighters? Yes. But at the same time, it works. And as the others mentioned, they're leaning into the whole highlighter vibe. And although Stabilo as a whole, because that's the brand of highlighter they used in one of their most recent videos, while not a Swiss company, because Sauer's a Swiss company, Stabilo is a German company, it's close enough to like have that cute connection in my eyes. And yeah, I mean, do the kits make it a bit cartoonish? Maybe, but then again, Valtteri just pulls it off in my eyes with like the bleach blonde hair and everything. It's just very his vibe. So I want to say 7.5. Now for Ferrari. Is the livery groundbreaking? No. Is Ferrari ever groundbreaking? No. Let's be honest. But similar to Red Bull, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. Which, as a Ferrari girly since like 2000, at least consciously, I love. But I'll try to be objective here. While I must admit, immediate thought was love the yellow. And it honestly, I must admit, it was also better than the black last year. Not a fan of the black last year. And especially on the race suits, I feel like the yellow just gives it something. Like, it's not in your face yellow. Like, it doesn't give you Monza last year, but it's still paying homage, if you will, to the Scuderia Ferrari logo. So I want to say 9.1 maybe.
I would say I'm sorry, but I'm not. I hate the yellow. I don't personally like yellow in general. That could be a personal preference, but and it's as iconic as the red, but I'm sorry, it's just giving McDonald's vibes to me. It's like I can't unsee it. And because the Ferrari yellow is a different shade of yellow naturally from the logo, the shell logo yellow, it looks off because they're so close together on the car. It doesn't, it feels off to me. Um, but like I said, I'm not a fan of the color yellow in general. So maybe that's just personal preference, but 8.4 out of 10. It's the yellow. It just
Now, I don't totally hate the pops of yellow, but I almost want a little bit more white in their livery just for like some balance. I feel like, and I'm going to sound kind of crazy saying this, I feel like there's too much color. I just want a few more, even just some of the logos being like the all white version of a brand's logo. I feel like a little bit more white would help balance stuff out a little bit. But I don't know, like even just give me the classic white rear wing. Like I just love that. But this livery just really is typical Ferrari. The fireproofs and the race suits are just, again, too much red for me. I would have loved it to be a black race suit. I do love the last name on the back of like your, like in between your shoulder blades. I think that's a really nice touch. I know not all teams do that. I think that's a really nice touch, but I think the red heavy car livery with a full red race suit with the red fireproofs, it's just a lot of red. And I'm a red fan. Like I love to wear red as I sit here in pretty much all black and neutrals. But I love red when I have an excuse to get dressed up. And I just would have loved a little something different than just like smack me in the face with red. It's a 7 out of 10 for me. It's just a little too predictably Ferrari.
Now, from very predictable Ferrari to Mercedes, who, while they have done the black car after like 2020, 2021, even last year, and I loved it, honestly, to me, Mercedes is just silver. They're called the Silver Arrows for a reason. And two, it's a throwback to 2010s Mercedes, one of my favorite Mercedes eras, which that's why I love the mix of black and silver because it like draws in that the blackness of like the post Black Lives Matter movement and the reason why they went black because according to some sources, basically Lewis in 2020 after Black Lives Matter happened, like all those protests and stuff, he was like, hey, let's do a black car to stand for something. I don't know how accurate this is, but that's a story I'm sticking with. But that in combination with the silver, with like going back to the roots, it's just perfect to me. So 10 out of 10 for me.
I'm here for the silver. I'm a silver girly. It's a vibe. I love it. I love the teal stripes on the side. It's different. It works. I love it. And it really gives it more of that like aero vibe. Going back to the 2010s, I would love to see them bring back the white race suits that they had at one point. Again, with the white race suits, they work. I feel like they look good. And I would love to see Mercedes bring that back with the silver. 9 out of 10.
Now, for me, it's getting there, but I need more silver. It's supposed to be the silver arrows, and there's just not enough silver on this car. I want more. The race suits are nice. I love the little details that they have on like the waist and the fact that they have different colored racing shoes and gloves for George and Lewis that fit into each boy's style and brand colors. I'm obsessed. It's from a branding perspective, it's genius. You're still giving your drivers a little bit of individuality, but you're sticking to your brand and what works. For me, it's a 9 out of 10 as well. I just think that Mercedes really knows how to do a livery. I still want more silver. Like, please give me more, please.
Continuing with the Mercedes-esque theme, Williams. I'm not mad about it. I will say I like the 2023 livery a little bit more just because it had the different shades of blue kind of like blocked in and overlapping, which I thought was really cool. This livery for 2024 feels almost like the grown-up version of 2023. I will say my favorite thing is always the placement of the Duracell logo. It's just so perfect. Like, thought was put into that. They were like, this, it's gonna work. It looks like a battery. It works so well. A solid 9.6 out of 10. The race suits, the white Williams race suits, a slay. I'm obsessed. I love them. I think they were done so well. I do like them a little bit more than the RB Toro Rosso, the white race suits that they have. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. I feel like the white for the Williams is just like a slightly different shade, and the RB ones are just almost too bright white for me.
I mean, Williams and their race suits. Let's start there because I'm going to have to disagree with Rachel because I'm not a white race suit girly. So bring back the old race suits they had last year, in my eyes. On the other hand, though, I must agree with Rachel on everything else because the Duracell battery placement, 100 out of 10, but the colors this year are just not it. Like, it's almost like it's too flat, if that makes sense. Like, there's not enough depth. That's why I'm kind of excited, honestly, for whether they're going to do any special livery because, for example, the golf livery last year that they had there be a fan vote, that slapped. And I kind of want them to bring that back. So, dare I say 6 out of 10 for the livery?
Now, I feel like Williams always kills it on their sponsor placement on their car. Their design team really does deserve a round of applause because the placement is just always perfect for all of their sponsors, not just Duracell. They have the layout down to a science, but the Duracell logo is forever and always iconic. I do have to agree with Rach that this does feel, I would almost use the word more mature, because we were able to see last year's livery in person in Austin, and because it had all of the multi-tones, it just had more life to it. This year's livery just feels much more, as Edo said, feels very flat, and I just want a little bit more, but I do dig it. It's just not what last year's was. The race suits are, for me, everything. Rachel and I have had our own conversation about this. We are absolutely and always Team Williams and the white race suit. I just feel like it fits the Williams vibe in my head. They're very clean, they're very sleek, and I just feel like their livery and their race suits fits that very nicely, at least how I imagine it all in my head. For me, it's a 9.2 out of 10.
Now, McLaren. Honestly, glad they ditched the blue. They had that like weird blue color block for one of their sponsors. I know blue and orange are complementary colors, but I feel like those specific shades just don't work. And I don't love blue and orange in general together. It just wasn't a vibe. The black and orange still gives me Halloweeny vibes. It just does. I can't unsee it. But I do think that sticking with just the black and papaya orange as their main colors, having most of their sponsors in white, or if it's on like the orange, it's in black, other than the Google Chrome logo because it's Google Chrome, it works. It works so much better. I also love, similar to the Duracell logo, they have the Google Chrome colors on the wheel. It looks so cool. It's such good placement. 8.8 out of 10. I am also, though, still team bring back the chrome livery. That was a sleigh. The silver McLaren livery just hits.
Oh, yes. Please bring back the McLaren Vodafone days. I need that livery back ASAP. Because honestly, with how reputation they went with their social media, like deleting everything before the launch and everything, basically going dark, I expected more. Not gonna lie. Is it bad? No, but it isn't groundbreaking either, which is exactly what I was expecting with that blackout. Then again, it does feel better than last year because the colors just work better. That blue, as Rachel mentioned, not the vibe last year. Does the Google Chrome on the side of the car, does that work? Maybe not. It works on the wheels, not that much on the side of the car, but still. From a visibility perspective, it will be a visible car, but I don't think you will be able to see who's driving because those driver numbers would have been so much better in black from a visibility standpoint because the silver driver numbers you can't really distinguish except for thankfully Oscar's 81 and Lando's 4. So you kind of can distinguish just based on the number of digits, but other than that, if it were say Lando and Danny still, I would have no chance of distinguishing who's who. So for that, I want to say 8 out of 10.
I have to agree with Ida. When they went totally dark on social media, part of me was expecting like a dark and moody car. I was almost expecting like a lot of black with pops of papaya. And I feel like they gave us a lot more papaya than I was expecting based off of how they kind of went on social media. But I don't hate it. I will say, as Rachel mentioned, the black and orange feels very Halloweeny, and I have a very personal hatred of that color pairing because I grew up at a high school where those were my school colors, y'all. I absolutely hated it. So anything black and orange, I'm like, no, it never makes good merch. And obviously I'm a big merch fan. Like I just feel like the merch never gives me what I want it to, which I think is why a lot of female F1 fans end up going to Etsy to get cuter F1 merch in colorways that they like. But I have to say, I am forever a fan of the Google Chrome logo on the wheels. It's just design genius. The Chrome numbers for me, I think work, but I'm not a F1 fan that looks necessarily always at the number on the car. When it comes to McLaren, for some reason, I always end up looking for Oscar Orlando's helmets because I feel like they both do very different helmet styles from each other that it's always very easy for me to tell just like at a glance whose car it is before I even get to look at the number. I just look at, oh, what helmet am I looking at? But I'm interested to see if they bring us any exciting one-off liveries this year. I feel like they historically have done that for us. But if I'm going to rate the current livery of the car, it's a 7.5 out of 10 for me. It's just not my favorite, and I feel bad saying that.
Now, Haas. I'm not the biggest Haas fan, but I'm not gonna lie, this one's kind of a sleigh. I mean, the only thing that they've like really, really changed is that they don't have as much white on the car as they did last year. Um, which I kind of prefer. I know we're talking about like, oh, there's so much exposed carbon fiber, there's not a lot of paint, but I feel like for Haas it works. It's also kind of almost like the rich energy Haas, which was like, was that a vibe? No, but the black on the car is a vibe. And so I think this really works. It's very cohesive. The black, the red, the white, it's so cohesive. It works so well. 7.6 out of 10. I'm still waiting for Andretti to just say screw it and buy Haas out.
Oh my God, Rachel. I mean, the rich energy comparison, that slap. Because to me, that livery, quick throwback, but that livery to me gave Lotus vibes, but like discount Lotus vibes. Which don't do Lotus like that, but that's a side note. Because I still don't like it, the current Haas livery. Like, is it better than last year? Sure, there's less white. Like, the white last year was distracting. But it still feels like they're missing something. And I can't put my finger on what it is, but all I'll say is that last year, even though I'm not white girly, last year the white felt intentional. Now it feels like an afterthought. And for that, I'm gonna give it a 6.5, maybe. Am I being too harsh?
No, babe, you're being honest. It's okay. It's definitely, for me, better than last year. I feel like last year, which is going to sound very funny that I'm saying these words, last year's livery was too much white, which I didn't think that that was possible on an F1 car, especially with last year how much carbon fiber we got. I never thought I'd say the words, there's too much white paint on this car, but there was just too much. This year's car for me, I just don't vibe with it for some reason. It's just underwhelming for me. It almost feels like they threw this design together last minute, which I know that sounds really bad, but it just feels incomplete to me. I'm giving it, and I'm being really harsh, I feel like 5.5 out of 10. I'd even honestly, if I'm being really brutal, it's a 5 for me. I just don't think this is it.
Yeah, honestly, before we move into Aston Martin, who knows, with how fast Gunter moved out, it could have been a last minute thought. Could have been pulled together last minute. But for Aston Martin, I love that the teal that they had is more green. It's almost not even teal anymore. It's more of like falling into that emerald color category, but just enough blue on it to toe the line. But it feels so much more like the actual Aston Martin logo. It looks more like that Aston Martin green. And I don't know how I feel about the Aramco logo on the rear wing. Again, it feels like the Cash App logo, where that just bright green and bright blue, it just sticks out so much that it just feels so blatantly out of place. And especially because the color of the car is like this blue, emerald, teal, green. They're close, but not. It's like they're the two separate colors that they took to bring together to make the color of the car. That's kind of the vibe it's giving. Overall, the color is good. It's iconic. It's Aston Martin. I'm going to give it a 9.8 out of 10. I think it looks great.
I mean, I definitely agree that this year's shade of green is better. And honestly, I never understood the color choice last year because to me, Aston is always and will always be racing green. And this is a step in the right direction. We're not there yet, though. Don't get me wrong. And that's why I'm going to dock them points for that. As for the sponsor placements, definitely like them better than last year. Especially the ones on the nose are more cohesive, dare I say. However, rear wing, not the vibe. Because last year they had just the black and white Aramco. Like it worked great, everything. And then this year they have to come in with that, dare I say, stupid green and blue background. Like, why? Just do the same thing you did last year. Then again, like so many teams, like for example, Ferrari and Red Bull, had the mantra, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, Aston Martin seemingly had the opposite mantra and broke it. And not for the better. And that's why I almost want to give it a 7.5 because that rear wing just really bugs me.
Now, I have to agree, I really don't understand why they didn't just do the black and white or the full white Aramco logo on the rear wing of the car. It just feels like a very odd choice to me. Mind you, I'm not a designer by trade. I just happen to work with a lot of graphic designers and stuff like that. But I just don't fully understand because the shades of green really kind of butt heads. But I do agree that this green is definitely better than last year's. I think the merch with this green will also look better. But last year's car really didn't make me go wow. And I feel like this year's car doesn't really make me go wow because it's not that much different than the previous year's car, except for maybe a slight change in color. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 just because I feel like they have found what works for them currently. I'm interested to see, they've got some new art directors in place. I'm interested to see if they have a little bit of a brand shift moving forward. But I don't hate it, but it's not like my all-time favorite.
I was just looking at the photos again, and I realized the Aramco is in black and white on the front wing. So I'm bringing my rating down. We're going to like an 8 out of 10. They could have done the black and white. They have it on the front wing. Why not the rear wing? Come on, guys.
It just feels like such an odd move to have the front wing always have the white font on the black wing. And last year's had the white font on the black rear wing. And then this year's it's got the white with the green backing. And I just don't get it because what was the point? I understand that like Aramco is a major title sponsor on this car. But y'all, you're literally all over this car. You're in the name. You're on the suits. You're everywhere. Did you really need to put the brand colors in it? Your brand colors are really not cohesive with the rest of the look. It just doesn't make sense to me if I'm being really fucking honest.
I mean, yes, they might be a title sponsor, but they were a title sponsor last year too. So, what's the deal? Like, nothing changed in terms of their level of sponsorship. And last year, they didn't mess it up.
We'll never really know what goes on with sponsorships. Sadly, I would love to know what goes on with their sponsorships. I'd love to know how much half of these sponsorships cost. I just think it's very interesting. But we really need to talk about, I think for me, the one team that let me down the most, and that is Alpine. Alpine. Guys, you played us. What were those teasers? Why? You played with my heart and I'm not happy about it. Where was the pink camo that you had in the Instagram feed? Unless that's for some random, unless you're going to give that to us as a one-off livery, cool. But if you're going to give it to us as a one-off livery, don't put it in a teaser. I have zoomed in on every inch of this damn car and I cannot find anything that matches the patterns that they showed in the teaser clips on their Instagram. And I have an issue with it. For me, it's a 4 out of 10. You guys, you played too many games and I'm mad at you. We're fighting, Alpine. We are fucking fighting.
I was so disappointed. Can we please just bring back the full BW pink livery from like 2020? That was the sleigh. Granted, I love pink. I've got my pink headphones, my pink chair, my pink mic. My desk is pink. It's kind of my favorite color, I guess. So I might be a bit biased, but also I think just in general this year Alpine is going to be a little disappointing overall for the season. We're only 2 races in, but it's not looking great. So I'm not saying that the pink livery had anything to do with it and not bringing it back and not giving it to us, but you know, who knows? 2.9 out of 10 for getting my hopes up.
I do have a theory why they teased us with the pink camo, but then basically gave us a black car, especially in light of how they have been performing. My theory is that originally they wanted to go with the pink camo, especially because it would have been epic since they launched on a Wednesday. However, they realized that the car was too slow slash heavy, and therefore figured they needed to strip all the paint, or at least some of the paint, because there's still some bits of paint left. Hence, we got the current livery, which, let's be realistic, will probably become even more black as the season progresses, if they want to get up to speed. And honestly, 4.5 because of that.
I don't think the paint was the issue because they're still pretty slow. Just saying.
Honestly, Rach, I do have to agree. I was just trying to give them the benefit of the doubt at this point because they need it. But from liveries to upgrades. So while we're only 2 races into the season, Ferrari, for one, have already announced that they will be bringing upgrades. They're actually calling their current car their 1.0 car, and basically are considering it a very much a baseline for what is to come. And those upgrades will start as soon as Japan and China with some smaller upgrades, and then Imola will see the first big upgrade according to them. And honestly, with how they've been placing on the podium, like right behind the Red Bulls, I'm excited to see what's to come. Because will they be able to catch up with Red Bull with those upgrades? Who knows? Then again, on the topic of Imola, there are rumors that even Red Bull will bring upgrades to Imola. Granted, I haven't seen it from any too reputable sources, like Red Bull haven't mentioned it and stuff like that. So it's very much rumor based still, but I doubt Red Bull will rest on their laurels because they are bound to know that everyone will try to catch them.
Adrian Newey cannot be stopped. He is inevitable.
Now, while we could talk about how the F1 cars look, I feel like we need to at least talk a little bit about the helmets that these drivers have created, because some of them are just works of art and some of them just really fit the drivers' personalities. And I feel like we need to start with, for me, the two who gave us the most color and really just kind of smacked me in the face with color, and that is Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, because we're getting neon from both of them. The neon actually like works really nice together. Oscar, I feel like I'm getting like a little bit of an 80s vibe for some reason. It feels very retro, and Lando's is just super cool. I love the way he's got the LN4 design kind of interworked with everything. It also matches the top of his sister's riding helmet. Hers is just in a shade of blue versus his neon, but it's got the same kind of pattern, which I just think is super cute. For me, these helmets are a 10 out of 10. The boys did not come to play with those lids for me.
Agreed. I'm not normally like a huge fan of neon. I think I mentioned that when I was talking about the Sauber livery, but Lando and Oscar's helmets are kind of a slay. I think they look great during night races and they work. They're definitely very representative of the boys' personalities for sure. 9 out of 10, just because I'm not a neon person.
Now, while I'm not a huge fan of either helmet, honestly, the monster branding is what kills it for me. I definitely prefer Lando's, and I'm very curious though what Oscar will bring to the Oz GP as a special helmet, because he's bound to bring one. Have there been any pictures? I haven't seen anything, but I'm sure because we had that week break, there must have been pictures already.
Oscar has dropped his Australian GP helmet. It's fantastic. It's giving Outback vibes. I 20 out of 10 recommend you check out his Instagram for it. It looks gorgeous. it's for the hometown boy, it's perfect. I also hope that we get a really good one-off helmet for Danny because it's his home race. But I feel like if we're going to talk about a pair that just has helmets that complement each other nicely, we really need to talk about the Red Bull boys, because you can't tell me that these two did not get together to design these lids, because they complement each other beautifully. I swear to God, was there a team meeting where they went over designs and went, we need them to look similar? I really don't know. But I love Max's. I like the white that he's got going. Max always does really good helmets. It just works. But I feel like I like the fact that they work together as teammates.
Oh, there was definitely a team meeting, because I remember last year for Zand Awards, Max had a special helmet, and apparently, usually the Red Bull has to be very prominent on the helmet, but they allowed him for that one specific helmet to actually have his logo take center stage instead of the Red Bull. So there was for sure a meeting. And not gonna lie, while I wasn't a fan of Checo's helmet last year, this year slaps. I love me a good dark helmet.
Now, this is another team that for sure had a meeting, a FaceTime, maybe multiple meetings and multiple FaceTimes, and that is the Ferrari boys, because they're so cohesive. They're both that nice red. I like that Carlos has has a little bit more black in his, but they're just so cohesive. And if someone were to try to tell me that these two made these designs completely separate from each other, I would probably laugh in their face, because they're just too complementary to have that happen. I'm sorry, no.
I feel like Ferrari, because Ferrari as a brand is so strict and they're very cohesive about everything that they do, they definitely have some like regulations, at least, that they don't necessarily have to follow, but it is highly recommended that they follow. And so they just kind of were like, all right, what can we do here? They almost look like inversions a little bit with the way everything is patterned out. Still love that Charles always has the Monegasque flag on everything he possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, with how even Ferrari, the car brand, Ferrari, the racing brand, like everything is so orchestrated. They have such a tight leash on everything. I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't at least 50 billion meetings and emails and memos about this. But I feel like with these helmets, it's not that big a difference to last year, which I like, but at the same time, give us something new.
My favorite helmets have to be the Sauber boys. Joe and Valtteri always kill it. They're so good. Joe's helmet, the hollow chrome on black with the Shanghai skyline, it's so cool. It works so well, as to be expected from our fashion prince of the paddock. Valtteri, the Northern Lights, are you kidding? Amazing. He always does such good helmets, and this one is no exception. 10 out of 10, both amazing. Love it.
Honestly, Joe for me is a bajillion out of 10, because it, like, night races, it's gonna pop off. And also, as soon as I saw it, it reminded me of the helmet Seb wore. I can't remember the year, but it was Singapore GP. He had lights on top of his helmet, like set into the helmet. And that just, to me, it gives the same vibe. And fun fact, actually, because of Seb's helmet back then, lights were banned to be put into helmets, which I get why, but also sad times. But yeah, it's just such a vibe. I can't wait for Singapore, honestly, with that helmet.
I will say, if we're going to talk about Valtteri's helmets, we need to give a massive shout out, like we did last year, to his lovely partner, Tiffany, who does all of the design work for majority, if not all, of his helmets. I don't think she missed a single helmet last year for him in terms of design. I'm assuming that's going to be the same case for this year. But Tiff like 20 out of 10 crushes it every single helmet he needs. It's fantastic. And I also love that he gets her involved. I just think it's really sweet and really wholesome.
Now, for our team of the week, it's going to be hands down our favorite livery so far. Steak, Kick, Sauber, whatever you want to call them. It just works. It's so good. It's so different. And when you combine the fact that the boys' helmets are so good, it's perfect. Team of the week, hands down.
Now, we know everybody loves talking about a good F1 livery or an F1 helmet. Now, what team has your favorite livery this season, or which driver has your favorite helmet? Let us know on our socials. Everywhere we are Paddock Girls Podcast, except for Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. There we are Paddock Girls Pod. Thank you for joining us this time in the paddock, and we will see you in Melbourne for the Australian GP. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.